Today I'm going to talk about body parts and color terms. And by discussing these two vocabulary or two types of vocabularies, I hope to be able to talk about a little bit about typology of Formosan languages. Okay, and this is going to be the outline of my talk. First of all, I'll talk a little bit about the relationship between language and culture. There's an assumption that our language reflects our culture. And then I'll be talking about body parts typology. That is, there are research done in this area about body parts and using the vocabulary in the body parts. And then and I hope to lay the foundation for the previous research. And then we'll look into the typology of Formosan languages to see how it reflects or it compares to the world languages, how it is like or unlike the other languages. And then the second part, I'll be talking about color terms in world typology, and then looking back to the Formosan languages in Taiwan, and just to see how color terms are developed in this language. And then later on, then we will discuss, how this the research is done, and then how the implication of that research is thought about. So first of all, talk about language and culture. We know that we all use language to express our ideas or to convey information. And language has shaped our societies into what we are today, or what the society is all about. And then we know language can reflect our culture, giving us a way to express our thoughts. And the idea of the relationship between language and culture is first noted by the anthropological linguist Franz Boas, and later on you probably know about Wolf and Sapir hypothesis and all that. So in Franz Boas noted that the language is used to classify our experiences with the world. So different people might be able to classify the world differently, depending on based on the language that they speak. So I'm just using that part of the assumption just to show that people will speak language differently, and then we just take that small part of the vocabulary, that's the body parts and then color terms, because in the research, all human languages would have certain basic vocabularies. All these basic vocabularies will be shared by all the languages in the world. And then body parts and the color terms are one part of that, because it's shared by all the languages. Those are considered basic vocabularies. So I hope to look at the basic vocabularies to see how they differ from one language to the other. And then by looking at that small part of the language, that I hope that we are able to see how language could be classified into different types, whether whether the classification is based on the geographical distribution, or whether is based on different lifestyles and things like that. So so that's the basic assumption for doing such a research. Looking at the relationship between the language that we use and the culture, and then maybe the location that we live in. Okay, and then in Boas' research and other anthropological studies, it is found that there's much more linguistic diversity in the world than we have commonly thought by those who study primary Indo-European languages. Okay, like Boas study American, North American languages, and then he found that there's a great diversity in the linguistics distribution. Okay, so before that, I would like to introduce this very interesting website. It's called World Atlas of Language Structures, shortened as WALS. It's a free online database of structural properties of languages. They survey thousands of languages, in-depth studies, and then turn this into interactive database. The book was originally published in 2005 by Oxford University Press, and then later on they negotiated with the university press and turned all those database into a digital library. It's a joint project by Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology and Max Planck Digital Library. It's a very informative website. You are able to see languages classifying into different types in terms of their syntactic behaviors, like word order, whether it's a SVO or SOV, and then you are able to see the distribution in a visual form. And then also it could be classified in terms of morphological structures, how word structures is like in this website. And there are 141 maps, and including 142 features, and the languages covered are types, 2,000, more than 2,000 or close to 3,000 languages, which is almost half of the languages in the world. The number of languages in the world considered to be close to 6,000 to 7,000 languages. Is somewhat decreasing because some of the languages are lost. Okay, the previous studies that I will be talking about, taken from the lexicon, the body parts and color terms from the study or the database from this World Atlas of Language Structures. Okay, so let's first of all talk about the body parts. Okay, in the previous studies, body parts include like hand and foot. Okay, but I'll be just talking about hands today. The languages would differ whether hand and arms are considered as one term, or they are separate terms for hand and arm, and then also finger and hand. Okay, we know that in English, hand and arms are two separate terms, right? And in Chinese, hand and arm, we share the same form, hand, 手. Okay, and then we have hand, and then arms will be 手背. You put another term together, but the basic, we share one basic lexicon. Lexi is hand. Okay, and then finger and hand in English too, there are two separate terms. But in Chinese, again, you have 手指, right? Finger, adding another word or another lexicon to it, and then hand. Okay, so in previous research talking about whether languages would differ in terms of the vocabulary used. Okay, so to define hand and arm, because you want to check whether that particular language has a particular vocabulary, so you have to be very careful. You have to tell the informant, what is it called. So you have to tell them what you are looking for. So hand referring to the part of your body that is from the tip of the finger to the wrist. So this part of that is called hand, and then the arm then will be from the wrist to shoulder. The upper part of that. Okay, so so that's clear with the definition of hand and arm. So then they went on to look at the typological pattern of hand and arm in all the languages, and all the languages discussed are 228 plus 389. So altogether about 600 languages, and then the result is about half and half, or maybe more of languages will have different terms for hand and arm. And so type 1 is hand and arm they use the same term for hand and arm. There are 228 languages showing this type of typology. For example, Vanuatu has one term, va, for hand and arm, okay, both. And Czech, ruka, and gurma, nu. So this is just an example to show that some languages use one term for this hand and arm body parts. Okay, and there's a second type using different terms for hand and arm. And English, of course, is one. 389 languages surveyed, or they have done intensive research in that area, and then found that 389 languages would have different terms. Nguawun, that's the language spoken in Australia, have an hand and arm using different words for hand and arm. Kamar for hand, pauka for arm. Okay, and Ethiopia, Chai in Ethiopia, same thing. They would use hand and arm. Arm referring to the upper arm. Okay, but there is no term for arm. Whatever that term is, referring to the upper arm. And there are also mixed types. That is, sometimes they use the same term for these two parts, or sometimes they use different terms for that part. Okay, or hand and arm. They will be use that interchangeably. Okay, so and there are also variants of type 1. Type 1 is the same, using the same one. That is, sometimes they use hand and arm just referring to, collection of hand and arm, or referring to hand and arm, not individually. Okay, it could be, including the both. Same thing in Chinese. Sometimes you say raise your hand. So it's actually you don't just raise that hand. It's the whole part of that. Okay, so that's what we mean by variance of type 1. So so it could refer to hand and arm, or it could just refer to hand, and sometimes it could also denote palm and foot. So it's very interesting. Sometimes hand and foot will be different, or sometimes referring to the same one. Okay, so same thing with other languages that are listed here, hand or arm. Okay, so it could be hand or arm, or hand and arm. Okay, so let's look at the distribution. So you could see it in a visual form. So this is how it looks like. Move slow. So hand and arm are identical. There are 228 languages showing this pattern, and then 389 languages showing a different pattern. So if you look at the distribution of that, okay, so the red dots are different, and then identical ones are the yellow dots. Okay, so yellow dots and all that, and you can see languages are sort of concentrated in equator in this in the areas. If the pattern is showing same pattern, okay. So let's go back to our okay. So the distribution from that visual distribution, the geographically distribution, we see that type 1, that's the same term, mostly near the equator, feel away from the equator. And the type 2 are different terms, you know, hand, arm, different terms. And mostly they are away from the equator, only feel close to the equator. So by looking at that, the map, we see there are different distribution. Okay, and geographical distribution, we can also see that type 1, the same one, in Australia is one language showing that pattern, and then a lot of that are showing a different pattern. Okay, and then in the South Mexican, Central America, and Africa, Asia Pacific, all these are all type 1. You know, all these languages are close to equator, and the type 2 mostly away from that. So, and then in terms of its genealogical distribution, we also find that you know, languages are distributed broadly, but then we find that languages closer to the equator tend to show identity than their closely related sister languages located further away from the equator. That is, although these languages are closely related, they have sort of family relationship. They belong to the same family, and then you find that you know, those are closely close to the equators will show similar pattern 1, but then closely related languages then will show you know, will be located further away from the equator. So we see that there is a relationship between the language type and the vocabulary. Wieckowski and Brown in 1985, they try to explain the reason why there's such a distribution, you know, why there's a type 1 and type 2 languages. And then they use this latitude and the weather, climate, and also the clothing sort of culture way to explain the distribution. That is, if you have an extensive wearing, that is, if you live in the colder area, okay, so you tend to have lots of different wearing, extensive wearing, and then it's unlikely that there will be a polysemy. Okay, that is, you know, one word that's showing different meanings, like one word for hand and arm. You know, there's sometimes refer to hand, sometimes refer to arm. That's unlikely for the weather climate that is cold, and you need lots of clothing, extensive wearing. But then if it's in the humid or hot areas, there's no need for such an extensive wearing. So therefore, the vocabulary will show that you don't. There's a polysemy. You know, that is, this hand and arm will be showing the same term. Okay, so clothing, extensive wearing relates negatively to the occurrence of polysemy. Okay, so it's trying to use this to show. And also the tailoring techniques would also, that's a sort of material culture. Some culture would have very detailed or very elaborate tailoring techniques. Okay, and then there will be a necessity necessary for you to refer to different parts of the body in order to make different types of clothing tailoring. Okay, so again, using this cultural explanation to explain why certain languages would have polysemy, hand and arm, meaning a lot of different things. And then for other languages to have hand and arm separately, because there is a need for this cultural expression. Okay, and the other term they are using is finger and hand. Okay, whether languages will show finger and hand as two separate words or just one word. So again, the definition of finger is one of the 5 things in your hand, and then hand again referring to from fingertip to the wrist. This part of that is called hand. So again, look at the typology of finger and hand, and we find first type again is identical. That is finger and hand referring to the same term. Okay. Then we find that Wapiri is Indian languages in Australia, Rudaka, the same term referring to finger and hand. And then another language in Indian languages, Mao, is the same. These are some examples of identical term for finger and hand. And then the second, another type is hand and finger as a collection, referring to all together and finger and hand. Some languages in New South Wales, Australia, Mara, and then California, Esali, and Paco, and Ati, meaning they use this term as a collection, like collective word. And second type is different terms, okay? And of course, English is one of that. Finger and hand will be different. The other types of this one, different terms, there are 521 languages showing different terms. And the first type, that finger and hand, showing the same, identical, only 72 languages would have that pattern. The second pattern is the majority of languages would have that pattern, finger and hand as different terms. Okay, but interestingly, I mark the base form in red, showing that although they are different, but then actually one is derived from the other. That is, there's a basic vocabulary, hand, chobi, and then and finger then becoming a little hand. Okay, so they use the base form hand, and then with a modifier little. Okay, showing that would be little hand, just like Chinese hand, shou and shouzhi. So you add a second word to form a new word. Same thing with this Yapese language in Micronesia. Hand is pak, but the fingers referring to the tip of the hand. So you see it's bugui pak. There's a base form park here. Choctaw, hand is ibak, but then finger is ibak ushi, meaning son of hand. Okay, little son of the hand. So in type 2, we find the majority of them will show the fingers are derived from hand for type 2 languages. Okay. And you see there are 72 identical finger and hand, and 521 are different. So this is a distribution. Of course, it's sort of broadly distributed. It's very difficult to see whether it's related to geography, the location of the language or not. Okay, So let's see how it could be explained in terms of culture. Again, you see geographical distribution type 1 in Australia, North America, South America, type 2 around the world. So there's, you cannot see a generalization from geographical distribution. Okay, but then it could be explained in terms of lifestyle. Okay, the vocabulary that you use will be based on the lifestyles that you lead. Remember we have 72 languages that have type 1. Hand and finger are identical languages, and 72 of those, and 46 of them, that's 64%, more than half of the languages belong to traditional hunter-gatherers society. Okay, so their livelihood depends on hunting, okay, and gathering. And 18 languages, that is about 1/4 of that, is a mixed cultivation and foraging, and only 11% is full-fledged agriculture. Okay, so if you add the first two together, so that's almost 90% of that are non-agricultural way of life. Okay, so languages that showing identical hand and finger vocabulary, 90% of those are, belong to non-agricultural way of life. Okay, so what is that to do with, the language typology? We look at the other languages, for example, like Navajo. Navajo actually is showing a type 1 typology, that is finger and hand. They use the same term for finger and hand, but now they are agricultural way of life. Apparently doesn't fit our hypothesis of there's a correlation between lifestyle and language. Okay, but then this is actually showing that they have changed from a hunter-gatherer to agriculture. So their language gives away that originally there's a hunter and gatherers society, but now because of the new lifestyle, they've changed it to agriculture way of life. So we can look into the vocabulary and be able to see, and there's to see the sort of the traces of history in the language. Okay. Why is that, lifestyle is related to this vocabulary use? Why is it the reason for us to distinguish hand and fingers? Okay, one is because after you're getting rich, okay, you have material lives. Okay, then you tend to decorate your part of your body. Okay, to show your wealth. Okay, so for decoration, then there's the use of ring. Okay, and then for agriculture society, farmers are they will have some material culture, so they are much more wealthier than the hunters-gatherer society. So they tend to decorate part of their body. So there's a use of ring. And then in research, we found that for foraging people, there's an absence of the term ring. Remember, the ring is one you wear on your finger, and so if there's a term for ring, then it's likely that you would have the term finger. Okay. In Kuhn's study, I found that the Eskimos, there's no ring, or there's no manufacturing of rings at all in the anthropological evidence. And also in prehistorical finger rings, there's, in North and South America, the archaeological excavation shows there's no prehistorical finger rings. Okay, so from all this, the evidence showing that why there's a distinction of finger and ring in agricultural society, but not in the hunter-gatherer society. Okay, even if sometimes they found the rings in the archaeological evidence or excavation, but then it is found that rings are actually acquired by groups from Western source rather than natively manufactured. So again, rings are not native to the hunter-gatherer society. Okay, so that's what has been done in the previous study. There are two types, one identical, the other one is not. So now we look into the data in Taiwan, Formosan languages in the world. The Formosan language in Taiwan is very important in terms of the language family. We know that there are more than 6,000 languages in the world, and then Austronesian languages, okay, Austronesian languages here. In the world, there's a total of 1,262 Austronesian languages in the world. So compared to all the languages in the world, it's almost like 1/5 of the world languages belongs to that particular language family. So it's a very, very important language family. Okay? It's important as Indo-European. It's also a very large language family. Okay, and then out of that 1,000 more Austronesian languages, there are 23 in Taiwan. Okay, according to some of the studies, and then the research showed that there are different subgroupings of languages, language families of this Austronesian languages. Some consider there are, it can subgroup it into 10 different subgroups of sub-languages. And the one research showed that there are 4 different types of language family, okay? 4 branches, okay? Of all this Austronesian languages, we could subgroup it to 4 branches, and then 3 is in Taiwan. Okay, so consider that such a small place, but the language diversity is so important and is so diverse. Like out of all that languages, 4 branches and 3 is in Taiwan. Okay, so that shows the importance of the Formosan languages in the world. Okay, I'll show you. This is the distribution of all the Austronesian languages, and you can see it's all in this Pacific Ocean areas, because Austronesian referring to the South Island. Okay, 南岛语 Southern Island. So it covers widely in the world, and then it also constitutes 1/5 of the languages in the world. So it's very, very broad. In the north is Taiwan. It's right here, the green one. And to the east, it goes to Easter Island. Okay, in the south to New Zealand, and the west is to Madagascar. Okay, so in all these wide areas is all Austronesian languages. Okay, there's a western. The purple part is the western, and this one belongs to the eastern Malayo-Polynesian, and Taiwan is here. And Taiwan is considered as the homeland of Austronesian languages. That is the distribution of all the immigrations or whatever you want to call it, is actually from Taiwan, and then move to the different parts of the world. Okay, so so that's very important. Okay, and then this is one map showing where you can find different languages here. So, and then another one, this might be easier to see. And you can see that all now the government recognized there are 14 different groups. I'm sure that I saw your multiple choice, so I know that you probably are aware of all the languages. Okay, from here is Saishat in about Miaoli area, and Sidik, very famous group now. The movie is made using that in that area, and Thao, close to Samun Lake area, and Bunun, and Zhou, Rukai, Taiwan, Ataya, Churuku, Sakiraya, Kabalan, Amis, and Puyuma, and Yami. Puyuma, if you have a chance to visit Taidong in the eastern part of Taiwan, you should try to visit this area. There's an archaeological museum. There's a museum because they found there's a excavated this Puyuma site here, and so they built a museum right on the site. So it's very interesting to visit that area. And Yami now is still called Yami, but then the people here want to call themselves Dao. So sometimes it's called Dao, sometimes Yami, which is very different from the other languages here. All these are Formosan languages, but this one referring belonging to the Polynesian Mayola. It's different languages. Okay, so these are the distribution of Formosan languages in Taiwan. And as I said, 3 out of 4 branches are in Taiwan. Okay, and so just showing some of the languages here. The one group is Tayak, one is Zhou. 2 languages in that group, and then Zhou, there are 4, Rukai, Zhou, Kanabu, and Saroa. There are 4 languages. And then Taiwan is the largest group. There are 21 languages belonging to that particular group. Okay, so we want to look at the type of languages used in Taiwan. So then we did a survey of all the Formosan languages. It's done by the Center for Aboriginal Studies at my university, National Chengchi University. If you are interested, you can also go into this website. If you want to, study a little bit of all some of basic vocabularies or conversation, dialogues and all that, you can log in to this website, and then you are able to study a little bit of that. Like it's all, they are all digitalized, and then you can listen to the dialogue, and you can learn it, vocabularies and all that. And there are also some quizzes, to see if you are aware of some of the cultural things about that particular language. So it's a very interesting site. The site, I think, has been awarded with, like the best learning website or something like that by the Ministry of Education. So we did, we built that the website when we are doing the, designing learning materials, that is textbooks for different languages. Okay, the textbooks refer to the 9 levels, from the beginning the level 1, maybe just easy dialogues, and then level 2 and 3, 4, to 9 levels. And then there are 42 languages. All right. We say the body parts typology is similar to the world type. There's very few languages that would have, polysemy. But then again, in this, though the pattern is similar to the world type, but then we see there's a great diversity or complexity in the language, showing that Formosa languages is really the oldest the language in the Austronesian language family. It's already confirmed by the research that Taiwan, the Formosa language in Taiwan retain most of the old features of the languages. And then from this body part study, vocabulary study that we find, is really very complex. The language is really very, very complex. And the color terms typology, the basic research theme is that there are typological patterns in how languages name colors. There are different patterns of color naming. The previous study showed that in terms of basic color terms, all languages have 2 to 11 basic color terms. They would have the least. You would have 2, black and white. And then there's a variation of that up to the 11 terms. Like English, considered to be the most complex, I guess. It has red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, brown, gray, black, and white. 11 terms. Okay, all these basic terms. Berlin and Kay did the color term study, and then it shows that there are 2 sort of questions. One is it's considered that there's a small set of possible color term systems. Okay, and so there's a developmental an order. There's also an order how these basic color terms would evolve. So you started with, if the language has 2 terms, and then you would have black and white, and the 3rd term will be red, and the 4th one will be choosing between green and yellow, okay, and then the next one will be blue, and the last one will be the next one brown, and then after that you have purple, pink, orange, and gray. These are considered as derived color terms. Okay, so in their study, there's 2 assumptions that there's a small set of possible color term systems, and also there's an order of how basic color terms evolve. Okay, the World Color Survey was done, and then it surveyed 110 languages in the world. Okay. Done by Kay, Berlin, Merrifield in 1991 and 1997 and 1999. There's subsequent studies of that, of all these languages. Okay, and then the color, there's what they call universal color categories. There's primary color, black, white, and red and green. Consider one type, and yellow and blue. And there's composite color. Okay, it's from primary color, like green and blue, considered as a composite color. And languages show that a green and blue actually referring to the same color. So it's shortened as a GRU, as combination of green and blue blends. Okay, the new term called GRU, referring to green and blue. And or you have black, green, and blue, referring to the same one. White, red, and yellow. All this black and blue, black and yellow, or yellow, green, blue, and yellow, green. Okay, but then we are most interested in the first type, green and blue, and there are derived colors, and derived colors are actually by mixing primary colors. For example, you mix black and white and come up with gray, and white and red will be pink, yellow and red will be orange, and then black and red will be purple, or yellow and black and brown. So these are the derived colors. Okay, and so the World Color Survey is trying to see whether languages, when they name the colors, how many colors each language would have, and then would that be primary color, composite color, or derived colors. Okay. So then they look at the fundamental colors like black, white, red, yellow, green, and blue. Okay, all these different colors, and then in the study, they show this evolutionary sequence of basic color systems. It's divided to five different stages. Okay, for example, like in the first stage, you have just one type, but there are two terms. Like W is white, red, and yellow as one type, and then black, green, and blue as another term. Okay, so it started with one type and two terms, and then it would develop into three terms. Okay, and then from that, you evolve into the third stage. You have two types, and then within each type, you have different terms. Okay, all these numbers referring to the number of languages that are being done in the survey that show certain sequence of development. Okay, so we can see one type one. If there's only one term, there's no languages like that, but just to show a complete evolution. So that there's a first stage, second stage, third stage. You have green and blue in the third stage, and the fourth stage, then you have green in green and blue. Three and four, third and fourth. Then you have these two colors which are separated in two different stages, and in the last stage, 5. Okay. So the survey is done. The languages, all these languages surveyed have no written language. They depend on the spoken language. And then the survey showed that most languages would have 5 colors. You can see 56, more than half of that would have 5 color terms. Okay, and it also shows that languages with less than 5 colors are distributed in tropical areas. Okay, this is again just sort of some correlation that they found with the number of colors and in terms of the location. Okay, so again we see most of the languages would have 5 basic colors. Okay, but if we put primary colors and derived colors together, again this will be the distribution of the number of languages surveyed. Okay, so again we see that most of the languages would have 4, 5, or 6 colors if you combine the primary and derived colors all together. Okay, and we are interested in green and blue color. Okay, just like the party here, we have green and blue. Okay, the color we also have a green and blue color. English is of course different in terms of these two colors, green and blue, different. We find that 30 languages show that pattern. Okay, and interestingly, we find 68 languages would have one term for green or blue. That is, they use the GRU, this particular term, and it refers to green and blue. There's no distinction of green and blue, okay? And again, some other combinations like black and green and blue, 15 languages would have one term referring to the three different colors. And there are minor things here that we have two, like black and blue or green, a separate term. These three as a separate term. Oh, yellow, green, and blue share the same term, two languages. And yellow and green share one term. Blue, a separate term, that's one language, and then other minors. Okay. But then, interestingly, we see that there are same term. Like majority of the languages will have that pattern, green and blue using one. And green and blue, that's sort of cold color. There's a warm color, red and yellow. This is very different than from yellow, green and blue. Red and yellow contrast 98. That is, most of the language would distinguish these two colors. But then 15 languages show red, yellow share one term, and there are also, again, some minor, combinations. Okay, what about in Formosa languages? What about the color terms in the language? In our data, we find 6 colors: white, black, green, blue, red, and yellow. 10 languages would have 6 colors, okay? And then 5 languages would have 22 actually. 22 languages would have 5 colors. So again, 5 is most of the languages would have 5. So that's black and white, of course, will be separate, and green and blue will be the same term, okay? And red and yellow the same one. Okay, 22 languages. Okay, within that that combination, green and blue, only one language would distinguish green and blue, and 7 languages would have green and blue as the same term. And 12 languages would have green only, or 2 with blue only. Okay, and other minor 4 colors, 9 languages would have 4 colors, and green and blue consider 1. Okay, and sometimes white and yellow will be the same term. Okay, 1 black and 0 language would have, 1. So I think this is a little bit strange. So they just couldn't come up with the color terms. Look at the green and blue combination. 10 languages would have different vocabulary for that, okay? And 16 languages would have green only, okay? There's no blue for the 16 languages. And 5 languages have a blue term, but not a green term, okay? And red and yellow is much more distinct, that they have different term for red and yellow. But in some languages will have red only and not yellow, okay? In others, minor ones like that. Okay, the evolution of these color terms in Formosan languages show that there are 5 or 6 color terms. Most of the languages will have 5 or 6 color terms, and then the stage is between 3rd and 4th stage. Most languages already enter stage 4. Some even into a stage 5. Okay, and there's a clear evidence of showing blue and green class in Formosan languages. That is, this is combined as one term. Okay, just like the survey done for that 110 languages, that blue and green combination is the major type of the color term. Okay. Okay, so you know, after looking at the body parts and also the color terms, we can, you know, we find out that the Formosan languages are really very showing a very complex pattern in terms of the vocabulary, body parts, and then color terms. And then also we find that the all this, what I call a cultural vocabulary, there's a very interesting word formation pattern in Formosan languages. And then that has something, that's something we can discuss in terms of whether this vocabulary is actually the retained vocabulary from the proto-language, you know, from, you know, retained from the ancient time, or whether it's a borrowing terms. Okay, as we say that the when we discuss the body parts, we talk about some of the languages would have a distinct vocabulary for a particular body part, and then some will be derived through sort of metaphorical or metonym. There's two patterns. Some languages would have, you know, create a term for that, and then some would be sort of derived. For example, in terms of color or body parts, Saisha has a color white, okay, but the term white is actually the same as clean, the term clean in the language, okay. And then Dao, that's the language spoken in the Orchid Island, the language that is different from Formosan languages in terms of language family. Yellow, there's a term for yellow, but then there's also a term meaning like a little chicken, like a little chicken's color, you know, yellow. That's how they describe the color. Again, you know, like in English too, right? Sometimes you use the color to refer to so fruits, using fruit, peach color, fruit, and you can use that then to refer to color. Okay, blue is called like the soup of snail. It's the ocean color. Blue, but in Dao language, you know, if you literally translate that color, it actually mean like the soup of the snail. Okay, don't know why, but that's how it is. It is spoken, and also in that particular language, there are 5 different tribes in the island, and then the color would be different from one tribe to the other. You know, it could be so diverse that even different tribes will use different terms for colors for that language. And Bunun has a green color, and this green color vocabulary is actually the same as bamboo snake, 青竹丝, or call it red tail snake. It's a similar, it's the same term for that. Okay, so that's how languages use or create new terms by metaphor. You know, trying to find a similarity between the two, and then use that. Or metonym, I said in the number, in the hen is 5, lima. 18 languages would have that as the vocabulary for hen. And in Amis, they even use betel nuts leaves, you know, betel nuts branch. It looks like a hen hanging down. So kamai, that's hen in Amis. Okay, so they see the similarity between the two entities, and then so they borrow from that particular vocabulary and use it to refer to other things. Okay, so very interesting word formation process of all those basic vocabularies. And you see there's a very diverse word formation processes. Some are using reduplication. Pi1 is the most interesting one. A lot of words are reduplicated from a root, okay, and then you can form a different vocabulary, okay. So whether these vocabularies are retained or they are borrowed, in the historical linguistics, it is shown that independent vocabulary, that is the non-analyzable vocabularies, usually would precede analyzable vocabularies. Okay, so that means if the vocabulary is retained, okay, most of them will be independent vocabulary, is not analyzable. Okay, but then if it's vocabulary that is later borrowed or even created later on, then it tend to be analyzable vocabulary. Okay, and then simple vocabulary, of course, then would precede derived vocabulary. Okay, when we talk about hand and finger. The second type, they have a different terms, but then they have a simple vocabulary hand, and then derive finger from hands, like Chinese 手 and 手指. Okay, hand and finger. You have a simple vocabulary, and then you have derived vocabulary. And the high in Wang and Wang 2004 studies, it showed that high-ranking basic words would precede low-ranking basic words. The high-ranking basic words referring to the basic vocabularies that are used in most of the languages. Particularly, they mention in the vocabulary list there are color terms, and there are also body parts. And the high-ranking basic words referring to colors: black, red, green, yellow, and white. Okay, so you see there's no blue here for the high-ranking basic words. And body parts: hand and feet. These are, the high-ranking basic words. Like fingers or elbows or arms are not high-ranking. They are low-ranking. So in the study, they show high-ranking basic words will precede low-ranking basic words. And then from this historical linguistics, or from all this research that we show, the Formosan languages are, following the same pattern. Okay, that you see in the language typology, that they all show that they have 5 basic color terms, and then body parts too. Hand, we only talk about hand. In our study, there's also feet. Actually, they're showing a similar pattern to hand. Okay, so so this again will be something interesting to look into, to see how languages is developed. In terms of the grammatical process, grammaticalization process, that is a particular term, particular vocabulary might be undergoing grammaticalization. That is, they're probably from much more concrete concepts, and then through time, then it would develop into a much more abstract concept. That's Hein et al. In 1991 shows that there's a grammaticalization process that we all started with most concrete or tangible things like person and thing. These are things, that we form our concepts. And then later on we need to talk about abstract things, events, space, time, and all that. And then, so there's this process of going from the most concrete thing to the least concrete things, or the most abstract. So it starts with person, thing, and event, space, and time, and quality. Okay, and space and time is actually something a lot of languages would use this metaphorical sort of process to use concrete terms to refer to space and time. Okay, for example, 上下, 前 and 后, before and after, referring to time and the location, and it also referring to time. Okay, so for body parts, it also shows an interesting process. Okay, I'll just give you some example taking from different languages. For example, body parts could refer to space. Okay, for example, in Japanese, there's a temai. Temai meaning the direction of your hand. Okay, my hand, temai. So hand then referring to direction of the hand, temai. Literal translation of temai is in front of the hand. Okay, in front of the hand. So if I point that and in front of your in front of my hand, that referring to you. Okay, so temai in Japanese is you, in front of your hand. It's very interesting extension from body parts to refer to space. Okay, or body parts can refer to a person. Okay, that's amply illustrated in Chinese. In Chinese, a lot of hand can refer to a type of person. For example, in Chinese, we say 水手. 水 is water, 手 is hand. So it's water hand. So that means a sailor. The sailor is, someone who is skillful with water, maybe. And 老手, 老 meaning old, and 手 is hand. So you're referring to someone as 老手, an old hand, saying that somebody is a very skillful person in a particular area. And body parts could also be extended to refer to measure words. Okay, in Chinese we say 弹一手好琴. Okay, literal translation 弹 is to 弹琴 meaning to play piano. 一手, so you play one hand of good piano. So that means meaning you are very good with piano playing. Okay, so again here we see 手 from physical body part, and it becomes a major word, a quality of that. Okay, and in Saisha it's also very interesting. They use number 20 to refer to a person. Okay, why is it 20? So we have 5 fingers, 10 fingers, and 10 toes. So added up 20. So 20 referring to a person. Okay, so that's again they use number to refer to a concrete things. So you can see lots of this metaphor, metonymic process of body parts and in color terms. Okay. Of course, hand expression, you can think about the hand expression in your own languages too, and I'm sure you can find out that there are different uses of that. Change hands, or wash your hands off, or you catch someone red-handed to give someone a hand, or on the gripping hand, and all that. Hand is not just physical hand, it could be something else. And something that is in square brackets here is the Indonesian language. They also have a similar expression of hand expression. Okay, in more of that in Taiwan, the language spoken here in Taiwan, there's also hand expressions very diversified meanings. People with skills, as in Mandarin Chinese too, you say "or chu," meaning black hand. Okay, that referring to the mechanics because their hands are always black. Okay, so we use that as term to referring to that, or 运转手 问讲. Have you heard of that? 问讲, referring to the taxi driver. 运 meaning to drive, okay, or to turn wheels. Okay, 讨手 投手 the first hand, that's the chef, the first chef, and second hand 二手. Could be a second chef, and sometimes we say 二手 meaning, you know, like a second hand things. We also call it 二手. Hand could also refer to person, 助手 or 下手, helper or subordinates. We use hand. Or sometimes behavior or techniques and degrees, different behaviors. We also use hand to refer to that. If you refer to somebody as 能手, 软手, soft hand, meaning that they are a coward or they are not, you know, strong-minded. 手头重, hands are heavy or hands are light. Your hands are quick or hands are slow, referring to the speed. Okay, if you withdraw your feet and wash your hands, meaning you quit these bad behaviors or you quit being associated with the underground gangs and all that. Okay, if you 道卡手, meaning you help with one another, you need to use your hand and feet and all that. Okay, and there are other things like 伴手礼. You must heard of 伴手礼 in Taiwan. If you want to go back to your own country, and then you need to bring some gifts back to your place, and then you need to buy 伴手礼, things that accompany you holding in your hands. Okay, things like that. Okay, so this hand expressions. The metaphorical use of hand actually derived from Formosan, one of the Formosan languages. I think it's a Saisha. If you are holding hands, 牵手, it meaning get married. You get married. In Taiwan, 看手, holding hands, referring to your spouse. Okay, and actually this term is actually from Saisha language. If you hold hands, then you get married. Okay, so if you want to divorce, so you let go of your hand. Okay, 放手, you let go of a hand, then you divorce. Okay, so these are the metaphorical use of hands from this Formosa language. Okay, we talk about retain or borrow terms, word formation, whether it's language is the vocabulary is return or is borrow. We can use Japanese example. Color terms in Japanese, there are primary colors and then other colors. And if it is primary colors like black, white, red, blue, and green, then the word formation would be different. They would use as adjectives to modify the following noun. And then all these terms would end in I, takai, kai, like red, ending in I. And if it's not primary colors, like yellow and green, those are not primary colors, then they have a different pattern. Okay? Like yellow is ki iro, and green is midori no iro. Interesting that they use as nouns. All this, like yellow and green, they use as nouns in this pattern, X, no, Y. Okay? X is the color, and then no will be the particle showing that X, Y is in a modification relationship. So they would use that particular construction. It's like apostrophe S in English. So they would say yellow's color, yellow's paper, maybe a green's paper, something like that. But then if it is a primary color, then there's no need to put a no in between before this noun. Okay, so so you can see if the vocabulary, look at the structure of the vocabulary, then we know whether they belong to the same type or not. Okay, Japanese is a good example to show that they divide colors into two types. One is the primary colors, and the other one might be borrowed or maybe later developed. Okay, so they develop two different patterns of usage there. So I just want to conclude here that we look at the body parts and then the color terms. We see there is a great variation among basic vocabulary in Formosan languages. The language is very complex. It shows a very complex patterns just in terms of the use of these two types of vocabulary. And then that complexity confirms the previous research that the Formosan languages is actually retain most of the old features in the Austronesian languages. And then in terms of the language evolution, the research in basic vocabulary can be used to examine how language evolved. And then comparing languages can uncover the path of cultural contact. The use of color terms, we see that you know, from their word formation or from the vocabulary, that we are able to see whether you know, how a particular type of vocabulary would be developed or evolved. Okay, and then maybe we'll be able to see some of the cultural contact by looking at the Formosan languages vocabulary. Then we find out that actually there's a great contact between the language of Formosan languages and Japanese languages. Also, Formosan languages and the Hakka language. Some of the cultural terms, for example, like soy sauce or some other terms, you know, are borrowed into Formosan languages. And also there's a contact between Formosan languages and the Minnan Taiwanese, or what we call Taiwanese. And of course some of the Mandarin as well. Okay, so it's very interesting thing to look into the vocabulary and then find out that there's a language contact here. And then the typological patterns of body parts and color terms of Formosan languages also show that the pattern is similar to what the previous research showed. You know, same pattern, body parts. You know, there are different types of like hand and arm, or hand and elbows. You know, they all use different terms. And the color terms, again, confirm to the majority, the major type. Like we have 5 or 6 colors, and then blue and green refer to the same color. Okay, so and then also we also look into the word formation of all these languages. Okay, and Formosan languages, as I said earlier, it's very important in Austronesian language family, okay, because it's positioned as the homeland of the language, and it keeps all the good, the old features of that language family. Okay, then we also discuss some extended use of body parts and color terms. Okay, so that's all. Thank you very much. Masalu ayoi.